Christine tilted her glass, eyes fixed on the bubbles rising through her mimosa. I went ahead and canceled that cheap venue you picked, she said casually, as if she'd just mentioned changing a dinner reservation. I booked somewhere more appropriate. My ex-husband Richard owns Ashford Country Club, much better suited for our family. Our family. The words landed like a slap. She said it as though I were some outsider her son had taken pity on, not the woman he'd asked to marry him 6 months ago. What she didn't know was that Richard Ashford, her ex-husband, wasn't just a name I knew. He was my biggest client at the consulting firm where I worked. And just yesterday, I'd messaged him about an outstanding $47,000 membership debt belonging to none other than Christine herself. A debt he'd been trying to collect for 2 years. Now, I sat across from her at the country club restaurant, not Ashford, but another she favored, with David beside me. We'd come for a peaceful brunch to discuss floral arrangements and seating charts. Instead, we'd walked straight into an ambush. You canceled our venue. David's voice was low, controlled, but I could feel the tension building beside me. Mom, we already paid the deposit. Christine gave a light, dismissive laugh. That barn? Darling, I know Emma thinks rustic chic is charming, but our guests expect a certain standard. Ashford Country Club is where real weddings happen. Her tone dripped with condescension. That barn she sneered at was actually a restored 19th century estate with a vineyard, rose gardens, and panoramic views of the valley. It was elegant, warm, the perfect place for us. We paid the $5,000 deposit 3 months ago and shaped every detail of our day around it. Christine, I said evenly, though my pulse was hammering, we chose that venue together. You had no right to cancel it. She smiled, the kind of smile meant to disarm and belittle at once. I'm paying for the wedding, dear. That gives me some say. And Richard was kind enough to offer a family discount at Ashford. It's already booked for June 20th. David stared at her, incredulous. How did you even cancel the old venue? You're not on the contract. Oh, I just told them there was a family emergency, she said with a shrug. They were very understanding. I felt my stomach twist. You pretended to be us to break a legal contract? Don't be so dramatic, she said, waving her hand as though brushing away a fly. I was helping. The Riverside estate is fine for small-town weddings, but for an event of our caliber. Our caliber? David cut her off sharply. Mom, what are you even talking about? She gave him a pitying look, her voice soft but dripping with superiority. Darling, Emma is lovely, truly, but she doesn't come from our world. She doesn't understand what's expected in our circles. I'm simply making sure your wedding reflects the family you're marrying into. There it was, the quiet prejudice she'd tried so hard to disguise. The subtext behind every suggestion she'd made since the engagement. To her, I was an interloper, middle class, educated at a state university, with a career built on hard work rather than connections. Not someone fit to carry her family name. But Christine didn't realize that while she'd been living off Richard's fortune, I'd been helping rebuild it. For the past year, I'd been the lead consultant overseeing the financial restructuring of Ashford Country Club, Richard's prized asset and her former playground. I took out my phone under the table and typed quickly. Me. Hi, Richard, quick question. Christine just told us she booked Ashford Country Club for our wedding using a family discount. Wanted to confirm that's legitimate, since I know the club's policies and its financials. His reply came faster than I expected. Richard, what? I didn't authorize any booking for Christine. And she's definitely not eligible for any family discounts. I looked up from my phone, meeting Christine's self-satisfied smile with one of my own, calm, measured, but sharp enough to cut glass. Oh, that's interesting, I said quietly, because Richard seems to have a very different story. Christine's smile faltered, her fingers tightening around her glass. For the first time all morning, she had nothing to say. Anyway, Christine said, setting her mimosa down with a faint clink, I canceled your cheap venue and booked somewhere appropriate. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. My ex-husband Richard owns Ashford Country Club. Much more suitable for our family, she continued smoothly, her tone soaked with superiority. The way she said our family, like I was some outsider her son had dragged home, made my stomach twist. David frowned. Mom, what are you talking about? She waved a dismissive hand. Riverside Estate wasn't the right fit. Too rustic. I bit the inside of my cheek to stop myself from saying something I'd regret. Mom, David repeated, slower this time. Did you actually book Ashford, or are you just saying you did? Christine's composure flickered. Richard and I discussed it. When? David asked, already pulling out his phone. Don't bother him at work, she said sharply. But David was already dialing. I watched Christine's face tighten as he spoke. Dad? Hey, did you book Ashford Country Club for our wedding? A pause. You didn't? No. Mom told us she canceled our venue and booked your club instead. Uh-huh. Wait, what? $47,000? Jesus Christ. He ended the call slowly, then looked at his mother, his expression a mix of disbelief and anger. Dad says you didn't book anything, he said flatly. He also says you've been banned from charging anything to his club since the divorce because you owe $47,000 in unpaid membership fees. Christine's face drained of color, then flushed red. That's between Richard and me. No, Mom, David said quietly. That's between you and reality. You lied. You canceled our venue, fraudulently, and pretended you'd booked another one when you can't even step foot in that place. 50,000, I said under my breath. 47, David corrected automatically, shooting me a look halfway between exasperation and gratitude for the detail. Christine stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is ridiculous. I was trying to help. I wanted you to have a proper wedding at a respectable venue instead of some barn in the woods. David's tone hardened. Stop calling it a barn. It's a historic estate. Emma and I chose it together, and you had no right to cancel anything. I'm your mother, she snapped. I have every right to make sure my son's wedding reflects our family's standards. You're not paying for it, I said, unable to keep my voice steady. David and I are covering everything ourselves. You offered to help with the flowers, and we were grateful, but that doesn't give you control over our wedding. Christine turned to her son. You're just going to let her talk to me like that? She's right, Mom, David said firmly. You crossed the line. He stood, pushing in his chair. We need to go fix whatever mess you've made with the venue. We walked out, leaving her sitting at the table, her untouched mimosa trembling slightly from the force with which she'd set it down. In the car, David was silent for a long time. Finally, he muttered, I'm so sorry. I knew she hated Riverside, but I never thought she'd actually cancel it. Did you know about the debt to your dad's club? I asked. He rubbed the back of his neck. Some of it. Mom's been irresponsible since the divorce. Dad gives her alimony, but she spends like she's still married to him. It's been a problem. $47,000 isn't a problem, I said quietly. It's a catastrophe. I know. He sighed and reached for my hand. We'll fix this. We'll figure something out. I called Riverside Estate from the car. My voice shook as I explained that our booking had been canceled without our consent, possibly even fraudulently. The events manager was kind, but firm. Miss Harper, she said, I understand, but we've already rebooked your date. The new couple paid in full. I can put you on a waiting list in case they cancel, but June 20th is gone. My heart dropped. Are there any other dates available? I'm afraid we're booked solid through next year. I ended the call and told David. He stared ahead at the road, jaw tight. So, he said finally, we don't have a venue anymore. No, I said softly. We don't. She's going to tell us to use Ashford again. She can say whatever she wants, I said. We're not having our wedding at a place she tried to force on us, especially one tied up in her debts. David nodded, then pulled out his phone again. Dad, we need to talk. Tonight, if possible. That evening, we sat in Richard Ashford's office, a large, book-lined room that smelled faintly of leather and old whiskey. I'd met him before in a professional capacity, but never like this. I'm so sorry, Richard said immediately. Christine had no right to speak on behalf of the club. She knows she's not in good standing. We're not here about that, David said. We're here because Mom's behavior has gotten out of hand. We don't know how to deal with her anymore. Richard exhaled heavily, folding his hands on the desk. Your mother's been struggling. Since the divorce, she's had a hard time managing money, her emotions, everything. I've tried to help, but she resents any assistance that comes from me. The debt to the club is just one symptom of something deeper. He looked at his son with tired eyes. I wish I could tell you it'll get better, but unless she faces the truth about herself, it won't. The room fell quiet, heavy with the sound of unspoken worry. And for the first time, I realized that Christine's meddling wasn't about control. It was about desperation. It was clear to everyone that Christine's behavior wasn't about a single bad decision. It was part of a larger pattern. She was still living as if nothing in her life had changed, spending money she didn't have, refusing to scale back. Why haven't you taken legal steps to recover what she owes? I asked, slipping into my professional tone. Richard sighed. Because she's the mother of my children. Because part of me still hopes she'll wake up and realize what she's doing. Because he paused, his voice softening. Because I still feel guilty about the divorce, even though it was the right thing for both of us. Dad, you can't keep excusing this, David said firmly. She committed fraud to cancel our wedding venue, then lied about booking another one. That's not desperation, that's manipulation. Richard rubbed his temples. You're right, he said quietly. Then he looked at me. Emma, I want to fix this. Not by pushing you toward Ashford. I understand why you'd never want that now. But I'd like to help you find another venue. And I'll cover the cost. You've done so much for the club. Let me return the favor. You don't have to, I said gently. I want to, he replied. You turned Ashford around. Membership is up 30%. Revenue's stable. We're finally profitable after years of losses, and that's because of you. Please let me help. Over the next week, he did exactly that. Using his connections, Richard helped us secure a beautiful vineyard estate that was even more stunning than our original venue. And, luckily, it had an open date in September. Christine, however, didn't take the news well. She called David constantly, demanding to know why we weren't accepting her help, accusing me of turning him against her, claiming we were punishing her for caring. David eventually stopped answering. 2 months later, a formal letter arrived. Christine announced she would not attend our wedding. The letter read more like a list of accusations that we had disrespected her, refused to compromise, and allowed Emma's influence to destroy her relationship with her son. David read it and set it aside. I'm disappointed, he said quietly, but not surprised. She's never been able to admit she's wrong. Are you okay with her not being there? I asked. He nodded slowly. I'm sad for her. But honestly, I'm relieved. It would have just been another fight. Our September wedding was everything we hoped for. Small, elegant, and peaceful. Christine's absence meant most of her family didn't attend, but Richard was there. He walked me down the aisle, since my own father had passed years earlier. During his toast, he said something I'll never forget. When Emma came to work with us at Ashford, I told people we'd hired a consultant. But what we really hired was someone brave enough to face the truth, to name problems no one else wanted to acknowledge, and to fix them. Those same qualities will make her an extraordinary wife to my son. After the reception, we found an envelope waiting at our hotel. It was from Christine. The note inside read, I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I hope someday you'll understand that everything I did came from love for my son. I only wanted the best for him, and I'm still not sure he's getting it. But I hope, for his sake, that I'm wrong. It wasn't an apology, more like a refusal to admit fault, wrapped in polite regret. David read it once and tucked it away. Maybe one day she'll say she's sorry, he said, but I'm not holding my breath. Do you regret that she wasn't there? I asked. I regret that she made that choice, he said. But I don't regret standing by you, or the decisions we made. She tried to control every detail, and all she did was show us who she really is. 2 years later, Christine reached out again, not to apologize, but to ask if we'd spend Christmas at her house for family's sake. We declined politely. Our plans already included Richard, his new partner, and a quiet, joyful holiday. Eventually, Richard pursued the unpaid $47,000 debt. He won the case, and the court garnished Christine's alimony until the full amount was recovered. It was poetic justice, in a way, The same club she tried to use to sabotage us ended up collecting what she owed. Looking back, I realized something important. Some people confuse control with care. They believe being involved gives them ownership over others' choices. Christine didn't cancel our venue to help us. She did it to reassert control, to drag us into her version of perfection, built on status and dependency. When that failed, she chose to miss her son's wedding rather than face the truth. The Tacky venue she canceled never came back to us. But the vineyard we found instead became the perfect place for us to start our marriage, far away from her drama, free from her influence. Sometimes life falls apart just to rebuild itself in a better way. Our plans collapsed under her interference, but what we created instead, a wedding, a marriage, a peace that was truly ours, was worth every bit of chaos that led us there.